Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is going to be Willem D. Swart, and we're going to be discussing his theory about the secret numbers of God, and he's done quite a bit of research on this over the last 30 years, and I'm really truthfully just now getting into it myself, so I'm going to count largely on him to guide all of us through this, because from what I can gather, there's a lot here to, absorb in one actual setting, and we're going to give you his webpage and that so that you can have future reference to it to check it out yourself. In the meantime, let me go ahead and get this started by introducing Willem. Willem, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much, Royce.
Well, Willem, I want to thank you for, agreeing to come on the show and tell all my listeners, all about what you've learned about this here underlying pattern and the secret that's involved in numbers and what they mean, how they relate to the tarot, etc. And, I'm here to learn today as much as host today, so why don't we get started by you telling everybody a little something real quick about what got you involved in this?
All right. I retired. I took early retirement about 2 years ago, but in my whole life I've been very interested in numbers. I've enjoyed things like Latin. I used to love Latin at school, and Latin sort of reminded me of something which was very, very structured, and I always thought to myself, and I enjoyed maths, obviously, and geometry and things, but when I looked at Latin, I thought to myself, this is very structured. It's got a mathematical base behind it, and I really, really enjoyed it, and I thought, one day I've really got to try and figure out what this means. Anyway, my life carried on. I qualified as an electrical engineer here in South Africa at Witwatersrand University, and I had a reasonably normal career as an electrical engineer. But 4 years ago, my little voice said to me, Willem, you got to go. It says, you've got to leave work, and I didn't want to. I fought against it, but I just knew that little voice was saying, go, you just got to go. Now, my whole life I've sort of known that this was going to happen, so I've made sure that I'm financially okay, so that I don't live, with any sort of dread about what is going to happen tomorrow. So from that point of view, I've looked after myself, and for the last 3 years, I have had enough time. I've spent all my time figuring out what the pattern is behind numbers. And what really kicked it off was the land of Egypt. Now, if you go onto my website,
okay,
then just go onto the home page, and at the bottom of the home page, there's a link, and it's the Justice Wheel of Fortune link. Now, if you click on that, right, you will see a couple of maps there.
Of Egypt as the center.
Okay,
well,
yes.
That's the top map.
That's the top one, yes. Now, let's just look at Egypt and the Great Pyramid, because when I found this pattern out, I was absolutely amazed there. I thought to myself, wow, this thing is so beautiful. It's so perfect, and it's so unusual. Nobody has ever come up with this. I think what has happened is that we've been so indoctrinated with evolution, which says to us that things are always changing. The earth looked different 100,000 years ago to what it is today, and I think there's even maps that show it. But what I'm going to explain to you now is so strange. It was really, really, I thought, what that really did was it forced me to look at everything in a totally different way. So I think let's just give the listener a little bit of insight into this to see what kicked it off.
Okay.
Now if you look at the Great Pyramid, the Great Pyramid is the center of the Earth's land surface area. Now, what that means is, if you draw the line of latitude, which is the 30-degree north latitude through the Great Pyramid, and it's 31.13 degrees east, and if you draw those two lines through the Great Pyramid and they're at right angles to each other, then you find that there are 4 quadrants, okay, global quadrants. And what happens is the quadrant with Europe in it and the quadrant with Australia in it, which are crossed over, they are equal in land surface area. And the quadrant with most of Africa in it and a lot of Asia in it, they are also equal in land surface area. And that means that the Great Pyramid is at the center of the Earth's land surface area. All right. Now, let's go to the second map on that page, which shows Egypt. Okay, and it shows the Great Pyramid, and it shows the land of Egypt. Now, this is, we're going to explain these numbers, but what it's really saying is the following. It's saying that all the numbers of the Earth, and in this case Egypt, come from the numbers of the Great Pyramid. Now, the numbers of the Great Pyramid are its coordinates, which means 30 degrees north, that's one of its numbers. The other number is 31.13, and it's got a third number. And the third number is its ratio between the poles, the South Pole and the North Pole, which is 2/3. It's exactly 2/3 between the poles. So what you find out is that the Great Pyramid has 3 numbers, 30, 31.13, and 666, which is 2/3. It's got a fourth number, which is a derivative of that, and that's the number 12, because 30 degrees is exactly 1/12 of a circle. Okay, now look at this. The distance from the Great Pyramid to the Libyan-Sudanese border at the bottom is 666 miles. Exactly. The Libyan border with Egypt is also 666 miles. The Israeli border, that's right on the Gaza Strip on the Mediterranean Sea, that distance from there to the Sudanese border on the 22-degree parallel is also 666 miles. And this corresponds with the ratio of the Great Pyramid between the poles, which is 2/3 or 666. So, I mean, that might be a little bit of a coincidence. You think, oh, okay, that's not too great. Okay, and it isn't too great. But then I measured the distance from the Great Pyramid to the Israeli border at D, and it's 207 miles. Now, 207 miles is exactly 3 degrees of arc. Okay, and if you use floating point arithmetic, 3 and 30 are the same. So, that distance there is one of the coordinates of the Great Pyramid, the 30-degree north one. Okay, and now this starts getting really strange. Because if you take 3113, okay, which is the longitude of the Great Pyramid, times 666, which is its ratio between poles, you get 2073, which is 3 degrees of arc. So the number 207 is coded with all 3 numbers of the Great Pyramid, 31.13, 30, okay, and also 666. So I thought, okay, now that's interesting. Then the distance from the Great Pyramid to the Mediterranean Lebanese border is 373 miles. Now 3113, the location of the Great Pyramid, times 12, which is the derivative of 30, because 1/12 of a circle is 30 degrees of arc, is 373. And 373 times 666 is equal to the Earth's circumference. So, again, coded into that distance are the numbers 31.13, 666, 30, okay, with the addition of the Earth's circumference. But that makes a lot of sense. Now, look at the next one. The next one says that the land surface area of Egypt is 0.666% of the land surface area of the Earth. I thought, wow, now that is interesting. And the land surface area of Egypt is 386,000 square miles. Now, if you take 386 or 3.86, because we are just using floating point arithmetic, so the decimal point can shift over. So if you take 3.86 times 3113, the location of the Great Pyramid, you get 12. Exactly, 12.00. which is a number which expresses that 30 degrees of north, which is 1/12 of a circle. Now, if you measure the ratio of the Great Pyramid as a ratio between poles, as we said, from the South Pole to the North Pole, it's 0.666. But from the North Pole to the South Pole, it's 0.333. Okay, and the land surface area of Egypt is 3.33% of the land surface area of Africa. So when I saw this, okay, and you can go into quite a bit more detail, then I thought, hang on, there's a whole new world here. A whole new world which the theory of evolution and all these things have denied us. There is a very specific geometric pattern, and that's what kicked it off. Would you like to add anything at this moment, Royce?
Actually, I'm still kind of, taking all this in and making observations, because a lot of the numbers I hear you mentioning, or at least a couple of them, they've been used in religious material, since time immemorial, almost like, people was recording in ancient scripture the same information, but nobody understood it.
Yes, this information becomes, in order to make it meaningful, you've got to put it in the proper context. That's why this subject that we're discussing, it really takes a lot of time to sort of beat it into its proper place. So, I mean, as I said, I've had 3 years, and many years before that, I've been pottering around with it. So you do need a bit of time to understand it. But I think all we really need to do, we don't need to go desperately into the detail of the numbers. And if you want to, you can, because it's on the website. But I think let's just take the conclusion. And the conclusion is that there is an unusual and a peculiar and something we have no experience of, a pattern that exists in Egypt and possibly in the earth. Okay, and all right, so let's just leave it at that, and let's just go to the next point where my research has taken me. And I think one of the most important things is in order for any theory to work, it's got to benefit you from a spiritual point of view. These numbers that we've been throwing around, on their own, they are just numbers. But let's see if we can generate more meaning from these numbers. And let's go back to the beginning, the very beginning of the universe. Now, I read a book called The Disappearance of the Universe, by Gary Renard, and that book really, really opened my eyes. I thought, I needed to read that book. And that book talks about the origins of the universe. Now, I've taken their basic idea and I've converted it to numbers because it works very well. And that's really going to be the gist of what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about the origin of the universe. I think we can all agree that God is thought. God is pure unified thought. So in the mind of God, all things are one. And thought also hasn't got a material component. Because the material world is a very clumsy world. You have to shift things over and it takes lots of energy, and God has resolved all those issues. So in this wonderful world, and it's that world of perfection has actually got a numerical pattern. And the reason why I harp on the fact that it has got a numerical pattern is that only with numbers and geometry can you prove things. And ultimately, in the realm of perfection, you've got to prove that things are perfect. And the one thing we cannot argue about are numbers and geometry. You can argue about whose piece of land this is or whatever. You can do all those things and you can get into a big fight, but you can't fight about the laws of number and geometry. So it's a great way to make everybody agree and stop the conflict. So ultimately, God is a pattern of geometry and number which is perfectly unified, and it is pure thought. Now, in the Disappearance of the Universe, what they say is the following. They say, into that perfect world crept a misthought. Now, it's not easy to describe what that misthought was, but that misthought, because the mind is universal and incredibly powerful, that mist thought responded by creating the Big Bang and the physical world. Now, it's actually not so difficult to understand it, because you can use an analogy. Thought. Let's look at the ideas of thought as compared or as opposed to energy and matter. Now, energy is matter. Einstein said, and I believe it is perfectly correct, E is equal to mc squared, so energy and matter are the same thing. Now, thought tends to reduce effort. Let's take this idea of two cities on either side of a river. Now, the only way you can get from the one city, if you don't build a bridge, is to go 40 miles around, let's say. So you've got to travel all 40 miles around every day to get from the one city to the other city. But when you think, in the process of thought, you decide, but hang on a minute, let's build a bridge, then it's only 3 miles. Okay? So the process of thought now makes it more efficient for you to go from one city to the other city. So you've reduced the energy intake or the energy usage that you're going to have, and your car's going to last a lot longer. So what thought does, it reduces energy. It makes things more efficient. That's why we think. And ultimately, thought would make the physical world redundant, because thought would ultimately take into the logical conclusion, it would make the physical world unnecessary, because it would have solved all these problems, all these clumsy problems of matter and energy. Now, I know that a lot of people say, yeah, but there's a good vibration here and there's energy and energy. A lot of people think that energy is imprinted with information. And I'm saying, no. Energy's got a positive and a negative side, which means it's conflicted. In the world of unity, there is no conflict. So the energy material world is a consequence, okay, of a misthought, where somebody or all of us didn't understand unity. And now we're stuck in this world, and now we're trying to battle our way and find out what is going on. And I do believe that the pattern, the universal pattern, is what we today refer to as the tree of life. So that Kabbalistic tree of life with the 10 separates and those 22 paths between them, that is the perfect pattern of unity. Okay, now it's important to realize that, because what would happen when that misthought took place? What it does is, in the world of God or heaven or whatever you want to call it, unity, oneness, what happens is, if you have a thought which is out of place, it actually means a thought which is not in line with unity. So what you do is you create a tree of life. It's going to remain there, but you create it in the opposite direction. So what you can say is the following. You can say that unity in the heavenly realm of God has two sides to it, but the two sides are working in harmony. They are in oneness. But when you have the misthought and unity falls out of favor, as it were, those two sides and the universal pattern is still there, but now the two sides are seen as conflicting with each other. So we create a world where all the information of the universal pattern is still there, okay? But we misinterpret what we see. We don't understand what we see properly. We don't understand what we see in terms of unity. We see the two sides of unity conflicting with each other. Now, that's a very important idea, because we're going to be discussing the 9/11, September the 11th, in those exact terms, because 9/11 and all the geometry associated with it, and it's not difficult at all, clearly points to an incredible universal pattern. So it's actually a pattern of unity, and it's a pattern which is a pattern associated with the 21st century. So it harmonizes or bonds the 21st century into the rest of history. But we didn't see it like that. We instead created an event which created more conflict. So that's where we are leading to. But there are a couple of things that we need to discuss before we get there.
Okay.
And okay, I think, Royce, is there anything that you would like to say at this particular moment?
No, not that I can think of. I'm still trying to keep up with you. I'm still looking at these two maps. You haven't moved down to the diagram with the cross and the circle yet, have you?
No, I haven't got there yet.
Okay.
We'll get there later.
That's fine.
All right. Now, the next thing that we want to talk about is the basic geometric elements, which are the circle, the diameter, the center of a circle, and the right angle. Because those three geometrical elements, those four geometrical elements, which I discuss a great deal on my site, have a very, very powerful psychological side to them, which people are not really aware of. And then people are not aware because nobody has taught us, nobody has said anything to us. So let's start with the center of a circle. What does that mean? Now, the first article I write on the website is about that, and I think we should just discuss it briefly, just to show you how geometry is not just distances and circles and things like that. It's got an extremely powerful psychological component, which religions are based on, although religions have misinterpreted quite a lot of this. Now, the one property of the center of the circle is that the circle, each point on the circle, is of equal distance from the center. Very important. Now, the center of a circle is symbolic of emotion or the heart, because people often refer to the heart center. So that's a simple way of looking at it, but if you go deeper into it, you'll see that it is so. So the center of the things is the emotion or the heart. And the circle is symbolic of the intellectual solution of everything. And you can see this if you look at pictures of the Buddha and of Jesus, where they are often shown either in sculptures or in art with halos or circles around their head. And that circle is a symbol, a universal symbol of enlightenment. So really what it's saying is they understand. Okay. Now the circle and its center, because the radius is of equal distance from the center and it touches the circle at every point, it's saying that the principle of equality connects the center of the circle to the circumference of the circle, which means the heart and the mind become one when you love everything equally. Okay, so that's what it's saying. And I think we all have got a sense of Jesus and the Buddha and also Mother Teresa. Their love for everything is the same. They don't love one thing more than anything else. Their love is universal. And I think many of us can sort of connect to God himself, who loves everything equally. I know the biblical issues are very strange, because the God of the Bible, okay, which to me is not the true God at all, because he has got special love. And if you've got special love, that means you're loving unequally, and you can't create a circle from a center point if you love unequally, which means there is no intellectual solution. So that whole idea about God and special love and loving other people more than he loves other things is completely, in my opinion, incorrect. And it's very problematic. I mean, think about how many wars that has immediately sparked off. Okay, so that's just the discussion of the psychological power of that simple diagram. Now, the other diagram, which I also go through a lot on my website because it's a very important idea as well, is the diameter of a circle. And the diameter of a circle symbolizes conflict, because a diameter has got opposite poles. It's the simplest geometric shape which has got opposites. I mean, a point doesn't have opposites, a circle doesn't have opposites, and neither does a right angle. So the line has the opposites. So you can look at the two sides or the two edges of the line as one side is positive and the other side is negative. But the line does something insane. What it does, it connects the positive side to the negative side. So it creates a short circuit. So the line I call the conflicted mind. which is insane. Okay, it's the big problem. Now, you know that a short circuit, which is what that symbolizes, creates a tremendous amount of energy. So conflict creates energy, which is immediately telling you that the world of God, where there is no energy, has no conflict. But somehow in this world where we lost that connection to unity, everything is in conflict, and it's got all this energy and all this matter in it. So that's the element that we've got to overcome. That's the element that we've got to say, okay, people, there's the problem. Now, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to solve it intellectually? Okay, which is very tied up to geometric solution, because we can identify a circle and the diameter. Now, okay, so that's three. We've dealt with two of them. The circle itself. Now, this needs a bit of experience, but once you get into it, you can see it a mile away. The circle means spiritual or intellectual solution to everything. So it creates the understanding, the language and the numbers and all that stuff which solves everything in the universe. Okay, so that's the third geometric element. The fourth geometric element is for us who are stuck in this illusion, because the physical world is an illusion, which quantum physics is getting more and more to terms with. So for us, the most important geometrical element is the right angle, the 90-degree angle. And in religious terms, that is the Holy Spirit. Okay. And I have to be accurate about this, otherwise I could never present any form of arguments, because I would just get lost very, very quickly. But once you see what the right angle is, you will see, wow, this is definitely connected to the Spirit. And if you look at the tarot cards, you can see how it reinforces all these ideas. All right, let's just briefly explain what the right angle does. And again, on my website, there are several articles. And
you can get them from the main page, right?
Which you can get from the main page. And if you're at all interested in the subject, I've gone quite a lot into depth about this particular idea. So I'm not going to go into a lot of depth about it now. I'm just going to briefly explain what it is, what its function is, how it performs. It's involved in the process. And this is what it does. If you draw a circle with a diameter, okay, now the diameter touches the circle at 2 points, A and B, at its extremes. Now draw a line from a straight line from A onto the circle, anywhere on the circle. And let's call that point C. Then from the other end of the diameter, let's also draw a line to C, anywhere on the circle, but it's the same point that the line from A is going to. There's always a right angle at A. Always. Okay? And the power of the right angle is as follows. It undoes the negative. So, the diameter of the circle has a positive side and a negative side. And what the right angle does, it eliminates the negative side. And the consequence of that is that the conflict or the energy or the war in the diameter is snuffed out. So it undoes it. It's like when you create a short circuit, what it does, it opens the gap, okay, between that short circuit. So the short circuit is snuffed out. So that's really what the right angle does. So you can see, for us who are trapped in the world of energy and conflict, it's the psychological thought behind that principle that will get us out of here. Now, one of the other principles of the right angle is it's associated with two things. It's numerically associated with the -1, very important. And it's geometrically associated, as we said, with the right angle. And it's actually a combination of the two. Now, the first letter, let's just look at some of the ways that this right angle gives us meaning. The first letter of the alphabet is A or alpha. Okay? If you put an alpha in front of many, many words, and it's in many, many languages as well, it does it all the same, then you negate the meaning of that word. For instance, if you take moral and you put an alpha in front of it, an A, or the number 1, because that's what a right angle does. The right angle side negates it. So it undoes the meaning of moral. So it means without a moral. So A, which is the number one, is coupled to the right angle, which means negation or not. Okay? And it comes up with a new word, amoral. And for instance, if you look at the word theos in Greek means God, and you put an A in front of it, it means without God. So it snuffs it out. It undoes or makes that thing disappear. Okay? So you can start to see how it ties together. Now, I discussed with Royce a little earlier.
Right.
The following idea of darkness and light, and how that is actually tied up with the number one. Now, the number one and all its meanings is something that very few people, if anybody, is familiar with, because nobody says anything about it. I mean, it's shocking. It's actually shocking that we don't have something which can teach us these things. All right. If you read Genesis 2, verse 2, it says, and there was darkness over the face of the deep. And in Genesis 3, it says, and then God said, let there be light. Now, I can tell you that the general word for darkness is 2, and the general word for light is 3. Okay, now can you see they differ by 1?
Right.
Okay, so if they differ by 1, they must be negations of each other. Now let's explain what that means. If you look at religions talk about the power of darkness and the power of light. And they are saying there's this big fight between the darkness and the light. Okay, between God and Satan or whatever. And that's not true, because if you take a room, okay, and you put a light in that room, and it doesn't have to be a powerful light, just a small light, but you seal that room off. And then you go into that room, before you seal it off, you go into that room with a big box, which is also sealed, and the big box is dark inside. And when you open that box, what happens? Does the light become less? Okay? Which means, is darkness a force which is fighting the light? And the answer is no, it doesn't. Okay? So, in fact, dark and light aren't opposites. They are negations, because the one is without the other one. So what we are saying is that darkness, okay, has no light in it. Or light has no darkness in it. They are negations of each other. So you can see how, if you develop this argument properly, you can see that all these things, like religion and all these things, what they have done is the following. They have taken the negative side of a pair, like dark and light. The negative part is the dark, because it's one less the positive part, which is the 3. And they have made the error, and this is to me, it's the most fundamental error in the universe. They have made the error by saying that darkness has reality or power. Okay. And I'm saying no, because it's undone. The right angle undoes it, and it disappears in a way. Okay, so the darkness has the following meaning. Without the dark, the light has no meaning, because light gets its meaning by negating the idea of darkness. It negates it, so it's not darkness. So the light gets its meaning from the darkness. But in that process, the reality of the darkness is undone. Now, I know that people are not familiar with this idea, and they really are going to struggle to keep up. Okay, but don't fret. If you want to understand the stuff, you can check all the stuff on the website, because to me, this is the key idea. Okay, Royce, any questions? Because I think those are very important points that I would like to bring across.
Well, one of the things I was noticing that you appear to, from my understanding, be referring to mind and thought as being different things. Thought existing, outside the circumference, and mind existing inside it. Is that understanding correct?
All right. I think let's clarify that. There are two minds. Everybody's got two minds. Okay. The one mind is the conflicted mind. Okay. And the other mind is the mind in unity. Now, the mind in unity, which is the real mind, is the spirit. It's the same thing as the spirit. And it's the same thing as the circumference of the circle. So the mind in unity is symbolized by the circle. The mind in conflict is symbolized by the diameter of the circle. And the right angle undoes the conflicted mind and creates the reality in the circle only. Okay? And that argument is exactly the same as the argument we've been having about light and dark. So what happens is that if you can employ the right angle in a proper psychological manner and you understand it psychologically, which, as I said earlier, is the Holy Spirit, what it does, heaven or the circle or mind in unity, it's all the same thing. It's a mind at peace, or it's a mind not at war. Now, it gets that meaning from the conflicted mind. So what it does, it needs the conflicted mind to create its identity as a realm of no conflict. But in that process, the right angle causes the diameter to disappear or have no reality. Now, this idea you need to hear hundreds of times, okay, because it's such a critical idea. Okay, and I have put book references on my site. The two books that I refer to there, which deal with this particular issue, okay, of the right angle. They are Disappearance of the Universe by Gary Renard and A Course in Miracles. A Course in Miracles was channeled to a New York research psychiatrist, Helen Schuckman, and it was channeled by Jesus, or Yeshua, Jesus, whom we know as Jesus Christ, or Yeshua. And to me, this is really what he's saying. And he talks geometrically, but he only discusses the psychological aspect of this. Okay, and he's basically saying, people, you have no experience with this, so you're not going to get it the first time. You're not. Okay? But it will open a new world for you if you're prepared to put the time and effort into it. Because it's the realm of the spirit. And it is geometric in nature. Okay, does that answer your question, Royce?
Yeah, I think it does, and it kind of gets me to thinking, what you're talking about, it's much like day requires night, hot requires cold to exist.
That's correct, but the cold has no influence on the hot. You see, if you look at the physical world, and it's quite a peculiar thing. In the physical world, the cold does affect the hot. I mean, you take hot water and you take cold water and you put the cold water with the hot water. Okay. It will cool it down. And that's because in the physical world, the more physical you get, okay, the more that happens. Okay, and it's to confuse it, because the physical world is completely conflicted. But as the thing becomes less and less material, then the negative side doesn't affect the positive side at all, like light. Light has only got very little matter in it, if any matter at all. Okay, and that's why it behaves properly. Okay, that the dark doesn't affect it. But the more physical you get, the negative affects the positive more. So you need to think about these things a lot before you can understand them.
Right. Now, one question, real quick before we go on. Are you by any chance at my site listening to the show while we're discussing it?
No, but I can get there very quickly.
No, don't. I'm just trying to figure out what's causing me to hear myself.
No, I'm not on your side.
Okay. Do you maybe have more than one microphone on?
Yes, I do.
That might be it.
Yeah, you see what I've got is I've got a microphone here, and I've also got a speaker. So I'm listening to you through a speaker.
Okay, that might be why I hear myself.
Yeah, that's why
you don't have headphones?
My headphones do not, they mess up everything. Once I plug headphones in, everything just goes haywire. Royce, is there a problem with the listeners? Are they picking it up as well?
Yes, they are.
Yes. Okay. All right. What I can do is I will try and shield the microphone, and I'll speak softly into the microphone. And what I'm going to do, Royce, I'm going to turn down the speaker. Just speak a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I still
some
hurt
more?
Huh?
How's that?
I think that's better.
Okay, so we'll carry on.
All right, let's give it a try. Okay, where were we at?
All right, we discussed the mind, the two minds, the right mind, the wrong mind, the conflicted mind. That was the geometrical elements. All right, the next part that I would like to talk about is the event 9/11.
Okay.
Because the event 9/11 is a wonderful description about how numbers occur beautifully in the everyday events of our world, especially the important events. They are more easily seen in important events. And then it proves what I've been trying to say, that these unified number geometry patterns we see in a conflicted way, which means our world, there's something wrong with it. Okay? It's a psycho world. It's a completely upside down world. It's a world of no unity. Okay, now let's go to that diagram on the Wheel of Fortune page. Okay, the diagram of the three circles with the cross.
Okay.
All right. Now, this is a very interesting thing, because what we said earlier was the following. We said that the circle means solution. Okay, remember that. It's the intellectual solution of everything. Now, if you want to understand the numbers of the center of anything, what do? You draw a circle whose center is on the circumference of another circle. Okay? Because by putting a center on a circumference, because the circumference means universal solution, by doing that, you are creating a geometric construction which will solve for you the universal numbers of the center. And the ideal way to do it is you draw one circle, and using the same radius, you draw another circle whose center is on the circumference of the first circle, but then you draw a third circle. And the third circle, its center is on the circumference of two of the other circles. Okay, so those three circles represent a closed system where the center is on the circumference of the other circles, which means it's a geometrical construction which gives you the solution to the problem of the center. Now, if you go onto the website, you'll see that it creates a cross. It creates that cross AC and DB. And it crosses at O. Now, the angle at O is 90 degrees, which means the cross is in unity, because remember, 90 degrees is a form of unity. So, and it's also, that cross is also on the circumference of one of the circles. So, without going into too much detail, what it is telling you is that the ratio of that cross is the ratio associated with center. And the ratio, which is AO over OC, or which is equal to BO over OD, because it's the same, it's symmetrical. The ratio is 9/11. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means that the ratio of 9/11 is connected to the center in a universal way. Okay. Now, therefore, if you look at the event September the 11th, okay, because it's correct. It means that event is actually pointing to the center of something. And why shouldn't it point to the Great Pyramid? Because the Great Pyramid is the center of the Earth's land surface area. All right. Now, look at this. If you draw the latitude, 30 degrees north latitude through the Great Pyramid all the way around the globe, this is what you notice. You'll notice that Washington, D.C. is 9 degrees north of the 30-degree parallel. and New York City is 11 degrees north of the 30-degree parallel. Okay, so the event 9/11 is pointing to the 30-degree parallel. Okay, so what I'm saying is these are universal patterns. And let's just leave it at that, and because we're going to get back a bit more to that, we're going to develop that idea. But before we can develop it fully, we need to talk a little bit about the tarot cards.
Okay.
The tarot cards, there are 22. The only tarot cards that I really talk about at this stage, because it's the only thing I really fully understand, are the 22 cards of the major arcana. Those are the ones that are called the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, those cards. Now, those cards are not, I think they're connected with the gypsies and things like that, and fortune telling and witchcraft. Now, you need to disconnect your perception from that conditioning, because the tarot cards are universal archetypes, and all their meaning comes from geometry and number, all of it. Those cards are so amazing, and I'm going to show you in a few little examples. It'll change your mind completely. These things, you're going to say, but where do they come from? Because they are immensely powerful. Now, the first thing that it's easy to overlook, okay, but we are not going to overlook it, and that is that every tarot card has got two numbers. The first tarot card, called the Fool, they've given it the number 0. So its two numbers are 1 because it's the first card, and it's got the number 0. The second card, which is the Magician, has got the number 1. So its numbers are 2 and 1. So every card has got two numbers, but notice they are two successive numbers, and two successive numbers differ by 1. Okay, therefore they've actually got two meanings which are negations of each other. So that's the reason why they've done it like that. Okay, now let's go to the 14th card. The 14th card is called Death. It's the Death card. Now, it's got two meanings, and the one meaning must be the negation of the other one. Okay, and I'm going to suggest that 13, because its number is 13, but it's the 14th card. 13 means death. 14 means life. Okay, because it differs by 1, and anything that differs by 1 is the negation in meaning of. Okay, now life doesn't have any meaning or identity without death, but death doesn't have reality because life undoes that reality. So the death is only the teaching part. But what are we doing? We are believing that the death part is real. Now watch this. If you look at the 14th century, the 14th century is between the number or the year 1300 and the year 1400. And if you use floating point arithmetic, it's just the number 13 and the number 14. Okay? So that tarot card is then symbolic of the 14th century. And in 14th century Europe, the greatest mass extinction event in human history occurred, the Black Death. The Black Death peaked in about 1350. It's in between, exactly in between those two numbers. It wiped out 30 to 60% of Europe. It just wiped it all out. Okay? And it took the world population from 450 million to 350 million. That's 100 million people. Okay? And in those days, 100 million people was a lot of people. So this is an interesting correlation. And it's again because we live in a world which we've misinterpreted, and we have said to ourselves that the negative is real. So guess what? The negative occurs. Okay, and it's all through misinterpretation or misthinking. Now we can look at the 16th tarot card. The 16th tarot card its number is 15, and it's traditionally called the devil. But in line with all the things we said before, its two meanings are devil and Christ. Okay? So 15 is devil, and Christ overcomes the devil. So the Christ is 16. And we can say that particular tarot card is the religious tarot card. I think we can all understand that. We can agree with that anyway. Now, what happened in the 16th century? Okay, in the 16th century, there was the greatest religious event for at least 2,000 years, and that was the Reformation. In 1517, Martin Luther pinned those 95 Theses, okay, on the church door and set off the whole Protestant Reformation. But it didn't make matters worse, because all he did was create more division. So again, it's looking at the negative side. Okay, so then you had, the Roman Catholic Church were doing a lot of things which were not correct. But now you've split it up even more, and now things are even more in conflict. Okay, so in those two tarot cards, they very accurately describe the major events of those centuries. And we can go to the 19th card, whose number is 18. And without going into a lot of detail, and a lot of movies are made about this, because Hollywood is totally, au fait with this. All the good movies, they understand this stuff perfectly. And you can see it in the numbers that they put on buildings and things like that. You can see it a mile away. So what I'm talking about in the tarot cards, and the difference of one and unity and all these issues, the shamanic writers who write the good movies know the stuff. They are taught, and they are very well taught. But if you look at the number 18 and 19, one of its key principles is freedom. Okay, and again, that's not difficult to understand, and I don't want to go into detail because I think we're going to drown ourselves in detail. But if you look at those numbers is the 19th century. And the 19th century, those numbers mean freedom. Now, it was only in the 19th century where the peasants or the slaves broke free from their masters, and officially they could become landowners as well. So the whole official drive, that we all stand up now and we acknowledge the freedom of all men. It still might happen in a subversive sort of hidden way, but officially that's when it occurred, in the 19th century. So we could go into a lot of detail about this, and I want to write quite a few articles on my website about the movies and this particular idea, because they use it a lot. Okay, so what we can see here is that the tarot cards explain the general drive behind a particular century. Now let's look at this century that we are living in now, which is the 21st century. Now the 21st century is between the years 2100 and it's in between the year 2000 and 2100. And we can reduce that to the numbers 20 and 21 using floating point arithmetic, which is the second last tarot card. Now, the second last tarot card is an angel or Gabriel blowing his trumpet and people waking up and getting out of their graves. So it quite obviously means awakening. It means to wake up. Now, I think we can already see that as we've gone into this century, the 21st century, there is a tremendous awakening amongst humanity. People are now, they feel that they've been asleep for this long, long time, and boy, now we're waking up, and now we want the answer to all these things. And it's written, you can see it, it's written right in that tarot card. Which again shows you that the people that are doing this are trying to bring to our attention that there is a universal pattern. That if you want to put it this way, things are predestined. Now, a lot of people might think, but I don't like that idea because I don't have any choice. Well, you do have a choice. You can decide to go with predestiny or not. That's your choice. But the predestiny that I'm talking about is a perfect pattern of unity. Now, you can imagine, if things are not predestined, in no time at all, the whole universe will be totally chaotic. It will be completely unmanageable. I'll tell you what, it won't even take a split second. So we don't want to discuss this too much because there's a lot of issues that you need to look at before you can understand it properly.
Right.
But it's certainly pointing that way.
Yeah, and now one thing I would ask on that is there a case where there's a case for predestination and a case not existing at the same time? Like the larger scale picture is predestined, but the individual maybe is not?
All right. if you look at the tarot card which talks about destiny and randomness. So destiny is predetermination, and randomness means things just happen depending on how you feel today, etc., etc. But that tarot card is actually called the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune means randomness, but it's got two sides to it. And it looks like the names that the tarot cards have got today are mostly only the negative side. So the Wheel of Fortune means randomness, but its positive side is destiny. Okay, now I'm going to say something. I believe that only destiny rules, because it's the only thing which is real. And all you can do is that you can see the pattern of destiny in your life, and you can confuse it and believe that it's random. So you can believe that you're making all these choices. Okay, but you're not. And if you think that's strange, you know that they did an experiment where they made a guy sit down in a chair, and they put these wires or like a grid, a metal grid around him, okay, made of wires. And on this grid, they put it 1 foot away from his brain or from his body, 2 foot, 3 foot. And they put a whole lot of electrodes on these things, and they connected these electrodes to a computer. Okay. Then they said to him, at 11 o'clock, we're going to put a clock in front of you, but at 11 o'clock we want you to create the intention in your mind that you want to get up and go to the toilet, or whatever. And at 11 o'clock he did that, and then all this data appeared on the computer, and what they found out is that the data points which were connected furthest away from him responded 1/2 a second before the electrical current in his brain responded. So it means the information is coming from somewhere else. And I'm saying it's coming from a universal pattern of unity. Now, I don't expect people to believe me. Okay, but that's just my point of view. I'm saying there is nothing but this. Okay? And you can deny it, or you can think that you're doing your own thing, but I don't believe you can. And I'll tell you, when I say things are destined, that destiny is pure freedom. That's why I said it needs a lot of discussion. That when you have agreed to accept your destiny, then only then do you feel free. Okay? Then you experience love and freedom and your connection with everything. Because that program that I'm talking about is based on unity and your connection to everything. All right. Sorry, Roy. Royce, that's the best I can do.
No, that was fine. It kind of brought to mind, teachings I've heard in the church about letting the Holy Spirit lead, for example, which I think dovetails with, your Holy Spirit right angle, and I think
Absolutely.
it all plays a part.
Yeah, you see, look, that Holy Spirit thing is a very interesting thing, and Christianity does seem to have cottoned onto that idea correctly. You see, God created everything in circles because the circle is perfect and it has the perfect solution. But we've become trapped in the diameter because we live in a world of conflict. And the world that we live in is so obviously based on conflict. If you just look at Newton's third law, a scientific law, which says for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And what is that saying to you? That's saying to you that in this world, everything is in opposition and in conflict. And the psychological equivalent to Newton's third law is the following. It means that if you want something, run away from it. If you don't want something, go towards it. Okay? So it's actually the law of insanity. So this whole world is structured on that particular idea. And I must admit that the line of thinking that I've started to develop is very, very consistent. It's very unusual, and it has gone against a lot of things which I believed. But let's just go back to this Holy Spirit thing now. So you created in a circle, which is the spirit or the mind at peace, or the mind at one. And then you've got the diameter, which is the conflicted mind. And there's the right angle, which takes you from the conflicted mind onto the circumference of the circle, which is the Holy Spirit. So only the Holy Spirit can take you out of the conflict. You cannot do it on your own. You can't, because you're the circle. You are not the right angle. Okay, so that thought has plunged us all into a world of conflict, and only the right angle can take you out. So from the religious point of view, the Holy Spirit leads you out is absolutely correct.
Okay. Well, let's move on with where you were going with 911 so we don't lose our place.
Okay, now we're ready to go into this 21st century, which is the coupling of the numbers 20 and 21, which means awakening, which we get from the tarot cards, the 21st tarot card. Okay. Now let's have a look at the event 9/11. Now, the understanding of what happened then is very simple. All you need to do is draw a right-angled triangle. Now, you can find this on my website under recent articles. If you go to recent articles, there's an A12, and that's the number of the article, and the name of the article is 2012 Unity, the Great Pyramid, and the Tarot Cards. So what I'm going to talk to you about now, and I have been speaking to you about it a little bit before this as well, is in that article. So if you miss anything, you can get it in that article. Now, in that article, there is a diagram, the first geometric diagram, and it's based on the right angle. It's based on the right-angled triangle. Now, if you make the two sides of the right-angled triangle 20 and 21, which are the two sides which are at right angles to each other, then that's symbolic of unity, because 20 and 21 differ by 1. Okay? And we know that the right angle is coupled to -1, or a difference of 1. That's the whole fundamental principle of unity. Now, what that gives you, it gives you a circumference of 91.1. Okay. Now that I found, that's very interesting. Because we have determined that 9/11 is the number of the center. Okay. And the center of the earth is the Great Pyramid, which is the latitude of 30 degrees north. And Washington, D.C., and New York City are 9 degrees and 11 degrees north of the Great Pyramid. But now listen very carefully to this. If you look at that diagram, the one side is 20, the other side is 21, the circumference is 9/11, but the diameter is 29. Very, very important. Okay. Now, if the diameter is 29, then the circumference is symbolically 30, because of the right angle that the diameter subtends at the circumference. And a right angle means -1. Okay? So, 30 and 29 differ by 1. So, that circle has got two numbers. It's got an actual number. The actual number is 91.1. The symbolic number is 30. And the event 9/11 unified those two, because Washington, D.C. and New York City are 9 and 11 only because of the 30-degree north line. Did you get that, Royce?
I think I'm trying to keep up with that, but now, okay, it got the circumference because of the right angle 45-degree angle line, right?
Yeah, if you page down a little bit, you will actually see that diagram. The diagram is 21, 20, 29, 9/11, and then it's got at the bottom 30, and in brackets symbolic.
Oh, okay.
All right. So this particular diagram is the key. It's the master diagram for the 9/11 event. It's got all the information that you need to know about 9/11. Okay, and there's a map at the bottom of the page. And if you read through it carefully, you'll see it's exactly what I've been saying. But listen to this one. If you look at the Great Pyramid and you measure the distance from the Great Pyramid to New York City and to Washington, D.C., the ratio is exactly 29 to 30, which comes from that diagram as well. So that's why I'm saying to you, there's no ambiguity in this. It's not Willem's idea. Okay. The thing is so tied up. It is so tied up. Now, if you look at the year 2012, okay, remember, the 21st century, because it's got that 911 on the circumference, and circumference means solution, it means the following. It means that the solution to the 21st century is found in the year 2012, because 2012 is 20 and 21 pointing to the center. So, what it is telling us is that the year 2012 has all the information, the unified information. It's like the key holder of time, okay, in the 21st century, which has the information which unifies the events for the rest of the 21st century. Okay, so it's like the library which will tell you how the 21st century will unfold. That's why so many people have been waking up as we, in 2012. Or 2012 is like the nexus or the apex of the information for the 21st century. Now, there's many more things which say exactly the same thing. And that is on the website. Okay. There's a map which explains it all. Alright. So, I know there's a lot of information, and I don't think anybody can really follow it unless he's familiar with it. But what I'm saying to you is the following. I'm saying, if you find this interesting, then everything I've said is on the website. So it is available for you. Alright. Royce, I think that's really all I think it's worthwhile me saying, because I think there's so much information in what I've already said.
Well, actually, I think you covered a whole lot, but what I don't remember you covering, I think I heard you cover earlier, is, the end of the road. I mean, you brought us up to where we're at now, but there's a future beyond where we're at now.
Okay. The whole question about 2012 is about the 21st century is to wake up. But what are we waking up to? Okay. We are waking up to the 22nd century. So, the 21st century, this century, is removing the barriers in our thinking and in our lifestyles and whatever that will allow us to connect into the meaning of the 22nd century. Now, the 22nd tarot card means cosmos, or the universe. So, I don't believe that we are going into the cosmos in this century. A lot of people say, yeah, but we've got all the technology. I'm sure we do have a lot of technology, and there's probably a lot of hidden technology which we don't know about, but it won't become official, okay, until later in this century. And it will only finally come out into the open in the next century, when we will use it for interplanetary travel on an official level, where the whole of humanity will be involved in it. I mean, I'm sure there are black ops groups, etc., who are already doing it. But as you can see, it's under the carpet. You can't see it because the time isn't right. Okay, so you might say, yeah, but why don't they tell us? They can't tell you, because everything unfolds according to this particular pattern of unity. Okay, so we might meet one or two extraterrestrial races this century, but it'll be low key and it won't be so universal. When we kick into the next century, it's going to become an everyday thing. Okay, so then it won't be an issue anymore. So in this century, we're going to overcome all those things. Now, I think it's important to realize that we are experiencing time as past, present, and future. Okay? And it's because we see things as separation. So we don't need to go through all these things, because all the solution is already there. It's all done. So in the realm of God and perfection, all these things are known, and all you do is experience that oneness. Here, in the physical world, we experience the same elements, but we see them as separate. And because they are separated out, we don't understand what things mean. Because in order to understand one thing, you need to understand another thing as well. You can't just understand one thing in isolation. And that's what we are doing. So we are going through all these changes, but we can't see the whole picture. And that's the tragedy of that thought that we had. Although we will all go back to God because He created us and we are one with Him. So He has guaranteed in our hearts, the promise of salvation. We all want that better world, and that's because He has put that idea in all of our hearts. So we'll all go back. The only choice you have in this matter is how long do you want to take. So you can go through all these events of scientific discovery, and these things have already been found out in the realm of God where everything is known. But if you feel you want to go about it this way, you're welcome to. God, nobody's going to stop you. But I think we all got to start getting to terms with this particular idea that there is a realm of perfection, and this place is actually psychotic. I mean, we're completely crazy. We go to war with each other. We kill each other. Oh, man, it's terrible. So we need to make this world disappear because this world is not real. But it's going to take time. And this subject which I'm talking to you now about is very well dealt with in a book called The Disappearance of the Universe. That's what they deal with. So we should all start thinking about going back to a world where everything is known. It's a world of infinite love. It's a world where your best moment here is like 1/1,000,000th of the experience that it is there. Now we're not going to get back there straight away, but that's what we should do, and that's what the message that I'm trying to say.
Now, on this other world, does it have any of the material things, or not material, but anything that's like a substitute for the material? You might say like a spiritual version or a false version.
Yes, no, it does. I think that's a very good question. You see, this is it's a very interesting question. I'll tell you how I'd like to answer that question. In The Disappearance of the Universe, what the two Ascended Masters told Gary Renard, they said the following to him. They said, we have come to put this world, this universe, in its place. Which means the physical world has got a place. We need it to give us definition for the world where there's no conflict. But we mustn't think it's real. That's, as I said, that's an error. So, this illusion, we can use it because that illusion gives meaning to the reality. So you can project a body because in the world of truth, there are no bodies or symbols or anything. There's just thought and solution and love and unity. But you can project a body. So if I want to speak to Royce in that world, I can project this image of my body. But I will know that that image is just a symbol and it's not the reality. So you can use your illusions and you can create a beautiful vista or a lake with your mind. You can do that. But you mustn't think it's real. You see, you've got to understand it in its proper way. So yes, it's so much more efficient because if I wanted to talk to you, I'll just create a chair. I say, Roy, sit down and have a chair. Let's have a chat. But you understand that you're not addicted to this thing that you see as a symbol, because that's not the reality. And I have battled with your question, and I have, because I also think, but then what is there? I want to talk to this dude here, and maybe I want to live in a house. And I do think that is there, but it's in a far more efficient way. It is. I don't fully understand it. But I think whatever it is, it's perfect. And whatever it is exactly what you want. So it doesn't lack anything. It doesn't have anything which you desire. It doesn't lack that. It has everything.
Well, that's interesting. concept, and it really goes along, from what I can tell, with a lot of the ancient teachings of Hermetics and alchemy in their own way. I mean, I think it's presented different, but it's overall the same message, in other words.
Although you have to be careful in this particular thing, because, you know, people, they talk in the following way. They say, you've got a mind, body, and spirit. You know, they're saying you've got a physical component to you. And I'm saying, oh, you don't have a physical component to you. That's a very, very dangerous statement. And it's something that people need to work at intellectually quite hard to understand it. Because if you connect any reality to the physical world, you'll remain here. You will be stuck here. Okay, and you'll be stuck in a world of conflict. So it's very subtle. And that's why I recommend those books, The Dispense Universe and A Course in Miracles, because it's that subtlety. Okay, so I'm not, you know, what the alchemists and what these people say, I don't think I'm saying anything vastly different. Okay, I think there's a lot of similarity, and it depends on which alchemical scheme. But this whole physical world and this whole principle of not and negation and undoing, etc., that's something I'm saying, people, this is where you need to place your attention.
Okay. So you don't have a physical body, you have a projection of an illusion of a physical body.
Yes, if you want to, yes. But you will use your illusion in a constructive way. You will understand your illusion. Let me give you another interesting example, because I found this very interesting. For instance, you know, they say you will be both male and female. All right. Okay. Or man and woman become one. Now, I found that a very interesting thing, because the male number is 5 and the female number is 4. Okay. They differ by 1. Now, at the risk of not confusing anybody, what actually happens is that the female doesn't know it's female. It doesn't know it without the male. So the female gets her identity from the male. Okay. But the male is not real. So the male, it actually dissolves into the female. And the reason why I'm saying that is because the female number is an even number, and the circle is an even number. So the circle, which is the realm of perfection, is female in nature. So the woman, and if you talk to women, you will see the following. The woman gets her identity from the man, which is the negative side. Okay. But the man disappears into the love of the female. And that's why when you get married, the woman takes your name. She gets her identity from you. But at the level of the spirit, the male has no reality. It's purely female. And if you think about it, the females are far more loving in general and nurturing than men. Men will just go to war, you know. Anyway, so this whole thing about unity, it's a peculiar way of thinking. And I'm saying it's a very essential way of thinking. And we need to introduce this slowly but surely, because it ain't going to happen overnight, into our general thinking.
Okay. Now, Sandy was asking in the chat room, she thinks she gets it, but I'd like to confirm it with you. We hold on to what we are here when that is not what we really are.
Perfectly correct. This world is an illusion because it's conflicted. Okay? And you see, if you look at it geometrically, this world, which is the diameter of the circle, it's always got a right angle at the circumference, and the right angle undoes. Now, so the Holy Spirit, or the right angle, undoes this world, so this world is not here. So, in effect, there is no world. Even though this world gives identity to the next world, which is heaven, or the circle. So it gives its identity, but in that process, it disappears. So what we have incorrectly done is we have said this world is real. And that's the error. And it's a big error. And we've all done it.
Yeah, and that's a message that heard repeated time and time again, and even science, like you said, is finally coming around telling us that even the chairs we're sitting in are an illusion. It sounds like a hard thing to grasp, but when you start understanding, molecules and atoms and projections, it gets to be a little bit easier, in other words.
You know what's happened? Your mind, look at the word fundamental. Fundamental has got the word mental in it, which means mind is at the foundation or the source of everything. Okay? Which means if you use your mind, which is infinitely powerful, if you use it, okay, and you create the belief that this world is real, it will appear real to you. Okay? But on the higher level, it's not real. And what is happening is you are becoming your own jailer. You are jailing yourself in an illusion. Okay? But again, the Course in Miracles and the Disciplines of Universe, if you are interested in that type of thing, they explain this thing very, very well.
Okay. Yeah, and I've heard the same thing before. The thing is, I think it's like you said earlier, we're all just now starting to wake up to that fact, and we're not all there yet. The thing about 2012, is that going to be a culmination when everybody is finally awake and they finally realize what's going on? Were the Mayans on to anything with that date?
Yes, as I said, it's the key information date for this particular century. So it actually means to wake up completely. That's what it means. But people have got their heads buried in the sand. Okay. So unless you opened up to it, you won't experience its benefit. So 2012 is an opportunity where information is available to you if you are ready to accept it. And it's massive information. Massive. It's very powerful information. Okay? So the Mayans were absolutely right. And if you look on my website, if you look at the Mayan calendar, which starts at 3113 BC, okay, and runs to 2012, you notice 3113 BC is the exact location of the Great Pyramid. Can you see that?
I was just thinking that when you said it.
All right. And if you look at I've written two equations on my website, which one is the 3113 and the other one is 2012. And they're both coupled into 3 and 666, which is the Great Pyramid's location. So they have just used a time number, which couples into a spatial number, which is the Great Pyramid. Okay? But it's on the website, so if you want to understand that, it's there for you.
Okay, and I went through your site and I watched the videos, but I've not had a chance to read but maybe one article, but I do plan to go further. Now, while we've been talking, I've been sharing your link in the chat room to various pages of your site, like the one with the books and, the PDF document and the other page you gave me. So these people have been getting the information. The only thing that I forgot to do was to read off the phone number, but we're so far along in the show, about to probably wrap it. There's no point in, putting the number out there now. But people have asked, Sandy asked questions in the chat. I was going to ask you, is there anything that you would like to cover today?
No, because I think what I have talked about today has got so many implications that if people can just get to grip with what I've said, I think they have done a marvelous job. Okay? Honestly, I think it would be information overload if we went any further.
Okay, well, listen, I'll let everybody know again, live on the air, because some people are going to catch this at YouTube, that the website is www.secretnumbers.org. And in addition to this, while you were talking and I was listening, I had an idea that about these authors on your website. I'm going to look into this and contact these people if they have information and see if they'd like to come to my show and talk about their books. I don't even know if they're familiar with your work or not, or if you just, are familiar with their work, in other words. But talk about these books. But it'll probably be August if I do reach them and they agree, because, I'm booked into August. In the meantime, since I will be doing this, I was going to ask you, if I'm able to reach them, would you like to come back later in August or September and do a refresher course? Oh, you'd love to? Good.
This is what I do. So for me, it's only a pleasure.
Okay. Well, I'd like to think my show's a pleasure.
Okay. Now, if any listener, you can tell them if they go to my website, they can send me emails. I always reply to my emails, and I'm very happy to have emails and to have a chat with people. So if there's anything they don't understand or whatever, they can contact me. It's, as I said, it's only a pleasure.
Okay, I wasn't able to find your email link on your site, and I think what I ended up doing... Huh?
It's on the... if you go to the top of the page, where you see home, recent articles, the last one is contact us.
Now, I found that link.
Okay, but then click on that.
I did.
All right, then look at secret numbers. There's a box there with secret numbers.
Yeah, I see that.
Click on that.
Yeah, I can see it opens up your mail client. You know what? I saw that. I didn't know that was a link, and I didn't even try it. And what I did was I went and got you at Facebook instead. I still succeeded, but it was a little bit of a roundabout way.
Okay, so it's all there.
Yes, it is. I didn't recognize it, and that was my fault. But, yeah, folks, y'all can reach him at his website through that secret numbers link on the contact us page, or you can reach him at Facebook. His name is Willem Swart, Willem de Swart, and it's spelt with a W, but it's pronounced like a V. Now, Willem, I don't really want to hold you up. I got a few things I was going to cover with my guests, like, who my next guest is, links they may want to check out, but that doesn't pertain to you, and I wouldn't want to hold you up for it. But before I let you out of here, I was going to say, do you have any last-minute thoughts, any thing that you got going on in the future you want them to know about or anything like that?
Sure. Not really. You see, Royce, I think the problem that I've got is that I myself am probably under information overload.
Okay.
So my mind is so busy with all sorts of things that it's going to have to slow down before I can look at what's going on out there.
Okay, that's fine. I was just going to say you can share it with them now, but you can always send me notices if there's anything you want me to share, and I'll be happy to spread the word. I'm a member of several groups, social networks, forums. I just get around and, share with people, in other words.
Now, that would be great. So if I do have anything, I will definitely use you as a contact. Absolutely. Very much so. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I want to thank you. And listeners, y'all hang in there for just a couple of minutes, and I'll let you know real quick who the next guest will be. But let me go ahead and let Willem go so he can, go rest his mind there and get some a little R&R time going here. Willem, it's been a pleasure, and I want to thank you for coming on to my show.
And I want to thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed myself.
Okay, and I have too. So you're going to go ahead and have a good one, and I'm going to do a wrap. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Royce, thank you, and have a great day, the rest of your day.
You too now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, everybody. Let me look at my schedule here real quick. And I've got one show left this month. It's called A New Way to Be Human with Robert Taylor. And he talks about 7 different spiritual paths. I don't have it right in front of me. I read his information over at Warwick. It sounds like an interesting man. Sounds like he's got a new approach, and I think he's going to be worth listening to. Also, like to remind everybody real quick that, well, for one thing, if you're here at my site, www.paranormalpalace .com. If you look on the left, there's a navigation menu, and right under Other, toward the bottom of that first navigation menu, there's a link that says Friends. If you click on that, it'll take you to a page with 3 banners on it. One of them goes to Alien and UFO Community .ning. Great bunch of people over there. They got groups, forums, chat. They're friendly. They're active. When I put a plug in for them, they put a plug in for me. So that's partly what I'm doing now. There's Supernatural UFO. That's a forum, and it's at supernaturalufo.com. Every one of these logos are linked right to the site, so you don't have to remember the URLs I'm quoting. And there's United Paranormal International, and that's another social network that I'm a member of, and there's some great people over there as well. And it's also a very active network, and a great way to meet a bunch of wonderful people as well. In addition to that, if you look at that menu again, and underneath Friends, you'll see advertising. Underneath that, you'll see Radio Favorites. And you click on Radio Favorites. These are some shows that I happen to know the host, and I would recommend them. You got UKPN Radio with Gary Brown. Jim Harold, Around the Campfire, I think is the name of his show. And again, these banners are all linked. The Gradian Report with Mike Hanks, he's a very good friend of mine. And Ohio Politics with Mark Hamill. You ever get a chance, click on the links, check them out. I think you'll really enjoy their shows. And there's also World UFO Today. Once a year, it's either June or July. I'd have to go check it out. I forgot. I want to say July 2nd or 22nd, but I could be wrong. They celebrate UFO Day. It's not a national holiday yet, but this is an idea that they had about 10 years ago that they've been doing every year. And you might want to just kind of give them a check out and see what they're all about. And I want to thank you guys for attending the show. I couldn't have a show without you. Requires guests and listeners to participate, or you're just talking to the air, which I don't think I can handle that for very long. I do definitely appreciate you folks. Please share my show. Guide people over here. You can get them in chat, and then we can all visit, or y'all can all visit during the show. They can ask my guests questions as well as you, and get the newsletter if they're interested. And, shows really, they get their life through word of mouth. And I'm going to leave y'all with that there note, and I'm going to get back to my family for the day. And I want to thank you guys very much for coming, and we'll see you hopefully Saturday, and then again next Tuesday for my first show of May, which will be May the 1st with Gordon Gianni Noto, and that's going to probably be a pretty interesting show. In the meantime, bye-bye, and it's been a pleasure.